of Cyber Cell, Daulat College, I welcome you all to this webinar. You all know the topic for today's webinar is a new privacy policy of WhatsApp versus other apps. Yes, over to Sanya now.
Good evening, everyone. We are delighted to have Dr. Manishika Jain amongst us, who is going to tell us more about the new privacy policy of WhatsApp versus other apps like Signal and Telegram. This webinar is brought to you under the aegis of Cybercell Daulat College. The Cybercell has been inviting various luminaries from the field of cybercrime and cybersecurity. We have been inviting them for workshops, for seminar, webinars, talks, and hands-on training sessions. Cybercell also has an annual inter-college fest called Encrypt. We have a newsletter called Cyber Network, and we are delighted to have received such a response for this particular topic as well. We are fortunate enough to be joined by Dr. Manishika Jain. As I was reading her brief bio note, I was surprised by how familiar she seemed. Not only is she from academic, who has cleared her NET and JRF exams, but has been tremendously dedicated towards the purpose of revolutionizing education with the motto of innovating, inspiring, and igniting. At Examrace, she has created continuous endeavors and has gathered over 1 million subscribers together with Examrace Hindi channel and YouTube Examrace English channel. She was a visiting professor at Gujarat University and has also worked in the planning department in Oregon, USA. Her focus was on the application of GIS for downtown development and renewal. In addition to her technical focus, she is also a big proponent of using the newer technologies to achieve the goal of education for everyone. What really caught me was her sympathetic attitudes towards the plight of young aspirants, especially those hailing from rural India. I like that she firmly believed that technology would be the key to providing everyone with access to quality education. Although her degrees are in geography, she has studied at JNU, New Delhi, and has completed her doctorate um, uh, on the analysis of urban sprawl and development of Udaipur in Rajasthan. And her doctorate, let me tell you, is referred globally by several students and research scholars. Her publications have been referred by various scholars and have received multiple citations. One of her publications has also been referred to in the parliamentary documentation. Her national and international awards and accolades are awe inspiring and run into multiple numbers. I'd like to mention that she has represented India in a 100-member youth exchange delegation to China, which was in the year 2007. She has received Young Geographers Award from National Association of Geographers, India. She was also shortlisted to represent India in the Commonwealth Youth Forum held at Kampala, Uganda. Ma'am, I welcome you. I now request our convener, Sushma ma'am, to present a virtual bouquet to our speaker and our principal ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, please accept our virtual bouquet. We are very thankful to you. And Dr. Manishka Jain also, we present you this bouquet. Please accept our virtual bouquet.
Thanks a lot.
Ma'am, we are ready whenever you are.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank the department, the Cybercell Systems, and the Daulat College for organizing such a wonderful topic, which has been so contemporary and has been a question for many of you. I have been seeing Dr. Shushma working day in and day out to arrange all the things required for the meeting. So definitely, he needs a lot of applause for that. To begin with, we would be understanding the privacy policy in very simple terms, and we would understand the differences, first of all, between a privacy and a security. For many of the people we have seen, specifically with the youngsters, the students, that privacy policy is just a myth. Privacy to them is a myth. They do not understand it with a sheet of paper or a cloth or anything, but it is out of his pocket. So the idea about the privacy remains the same. When we talk about privacy, it's the things that are brought out of your own boundaries that you have created. So it's very important to understand that privacy is not a myth. We need to take privacy really seriously. Now, when it comes to privacy versus security, we will first understand what is the difference between a privacy and security, and then we'll move forward with understanding privacy into further detail. So let's say we have taken a bank account, okay, or you have to keep your documents, you have taken a cabinet with a lock. So that is a security issue. You do not want the documents to be tampered. You do not want the things that you have kept in your bank lockers to be unsafe, and that is security. The things are with you. Now, the privacy issue comes when the things are being shared. Now, when I say things are being shared, in very simple ways, we can understand that when the information is on your system, on your computer, on your mobile device, the issue is of security. But as soon as it goes into a social media platform, it goes into a messenger platform, the issue changes to privacy, because it's there that the data can be collected, shared, and transferred to other people. So, therefore, data privacy becomes a very, very important concern. Now, a lot of people say, why data is so important? I would say data is a new gold now. It's not the real gold, but the real gold now, because once, let's say, you have your date of birth that is exposed, now with that date of birth, which is a very, very simple information for many of us, a lot of information can be retrieved, your interest areas, your particular age group for which you can be targeted for certain products, certain advertisements. So definitely, it becomes a sensitive information. I'll give you another good example here. Let's say we are walking on a road and we meet a stranger. So what's the most common information that you would like to give to them? I would say the most common information you would like to give to them is, of course, you would say your name, and that's it. Or you would introduce that you are a person from so and so background or something like that, which is a very, very general information. But what about if you by chance have to share information that is related to, let's say, your bank account, your credit card details, or any other related information? It won't sound natural to you. So that is where the real concern arises. So whenever we are talking about privacy issues, we need to understand how the data is collected, how the data is shared. Again, two of the very important informations I would consider is the personal identifiable information and the personal health information. Those two informations are, I would say, very, very sensitive records. Let's say your personal health records are leaked. What could happen? The insurance company can charge different amount for the same service they are providing to different people, and therefore you could be charged, let's say, 10,000 rupees for the same insurance service, and another person could be charged, let's say, 5,000. Further, another person could be charged 20,000 for the same service. So once your data is out, you need to understand that there has a huge there is a huge lot of difference that immediately occurs there. So data privacy therefore becomes very, very important. And I have a very simple another example to help you explain this. What is going around with social media these days is putting up a lot of pictures, lot of photos, and if you go by certain statistics, you would say countries like Thailand have been leading this figures in terms of the numbers of photos and images being posted on social media. I would say this is equivalent to walking on a road and pasting photographs on the wall. So do you do that? Do you paste your family photographs as you are walking on the street, on the walls of the street? Do you keep pasting the photographs of your family? Definitely not. And that is a personal information to you. You consider it as a personal information, and therefore you do not do it. The same thing when you are posting it on a social media platform, most of the people do not understand that it could have certain repercussions with them, but they do have. And that's what we will be discussing all about today. Now, whenever we focus on privacy, there are three important things that we need to understand. The first important thing that I would say here is understanding how the data is shared. So how sharing the data occurs is the first important thing that you must understand. The second important thing is how data is stored and collected. So how data is stored or collected is another important thing that you must be familiar with. And lastly, you must understand the regulatory restrictions, if any. Now, India does not have regulatory restrictions, but other countries globally do have regulatory restrictions when it comes to privacy issue, which we would understand towards the end. But when it comes to how data is shared, there are three ways in which data is shared. It can be first party, second party, or third party. To put it very, very simply, first party is the information that is being collected from your audience, from your customers directly. So let's say there is a business, and the business, whatever information they are collecting from their customers is a first party data, and that is fine because customers have willingly, intentionally given that information. So let's say you are walking into a bank to open a bank account. You give all the required information, and that is for the purpose to be shared by the bank itself, and that is the first party. What is the second party? Second party is when the data is collected by someone else first party. So the original person is not collecting the data, but it is someone else first party who is collecting the data. So it could be through web activities, through social media, and then further there is the issue of third party data, which has been in news with the WhatsApp issue and the Facebook issue recently. So third-party data basically buy the data from outside sources, and they are not the original character of the data. We would understand from the original white papers of WhatsApp that we have retrieved to exactly understand the legal languages that they have used. Now, when they are the aggregators, they have more freedom to be to use that data, and further that data could be misused as well. We have another simple basic understanding of the concept. So let's say I am looking to buy a pen, and what I do is I go to Amazon and search for a pen. Now, I searched for a pen on Amazon, but probably I bought it or not. That's a separate story. But as soon as I visit another website, I would see ads by Amazon, which would show me various kinds of pens that are available. Now I move on to another website, and again in that website, when the ads are coming, you would see ads of various pens that would be there. This would keep on happening unless and until you have the tracking cookies that are disabled on your system. Now, therefore, we would say companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon have been building empires on data. So we need to understand this issue of data sharing very, very closely in order to make sure that the data that we are providing is not being misused. Now, again, one very important term that we would come across as we move further. So let's talk about few of the important terms. The first important term that would be here would be the open source code. Now, open source code is a software program which has the source code being released for a general public license. That means the copyright holders usually grant the permission to use, to study, to change, to modify the source code. And everyone, the public, knows what the source code is, and therefore any change that has been brought about is immediately public and it is visible to anyone and everyone. Now, this open source code has been seen in systems like Signal, in Telegram, and then you also have Threema. We will talk about each of these as we move forward. So open source code is basically very, I would say, beneficial to public, because public actually has a real eye, a real knowledge onto what is the code behind it and what kind of data, what kind of information can be used, or what kind of information could be given to third party or they are not given to third party. So any of the information, any of the privacy policy that is there for the messenger apps is very clear with the open source code. Again, there is another terminology that we would come across as we move further, is end-to-end encryption. Now, you might have seen a lot of news these days saying that WhatsApp is telling that our messages would be end-to-end encrypted. What does this mean? It simply means there is a user A and there is a user B. So both of them know the message. So let's say user A is sending the message. Now this message is going through an encrypted channel through the servers and finally to the user B, who would be able to decrypt the message that would be there. That means the message is known to user A and user B and no one in between, not even the servers, because that message to the server appears as symbols, as signs, and it's totally encrypted. So till the time the information is encrypted, it is totally fine. As the system runs beyond saying that the system is end-to-end encrypted, then there is a question that we need to understand. And this is the case with WhatsApp recent changes with the policy that has been, however, postponed for the month of May. Previously, it was for the month of February, but they have postponed the plans for May as one of the recent decisions. Now, what we have retrieved here is from the white paper of WhatsApp. We have the source quoted here. So anyone who wants to read the whole of the white paper can definitely go to the link that we have mentioned below. Now, understanding this, WhatsApp considers a business or a relation between a user and an organization through the signal encryption, and that means the information so far that is being transmitted is end-to-end encrypted. Now, what changes WhatsApp is trying to bring about is the second diagram that is here, that shows that the WhatsApp users would be sending the information which would be available to the vendor, and from the vendor it would be going to the organization. Now, the language, if you read here, it clearly says in 2021, the organizations who use business API would be able to send the information to the parent company, Facebook. Now, what does this mean? This means that here, who is the vendor? Here, Facebook becomes the vendor. Unless and until you have assigned someone else as the business API manager, Facebook would be the default manager for the API. And in that case, the information would be shared with the parent company, that is Facebook. So that means that the messages here are not end-to-end encrypted. The messages could be retrieved by the vendor, that is Facebook. Now, how these messages could be used? Any of a common person who is communicating to a business account, that means if you are a WhatsApp user and you are communicating with a person who has a business account. Now, business account, a lot of WhatsApp now are based on business account. It could be, let's say, a small dispensary, it could be a nursing home, it could be a hospital, it could be a restaurant, it could be a school or any other platform that is there. So what would happen? A user who is communicating does not know whether on the other end there is a business account or not, and they might share some information. Let's say a person shares an information, is visiting an organization which is a restaurant. Now, what would happen? The vendor, which is the Facebook now, would be able to track and understand that the user has an interest in so-and-so restaurants, and would be also able to understand probably the distance that you are covering, the region that you are living in. So your location could also be exposed. Again, your potential amount of spendability, how much you can spend, would also be exposed. So there are lots and lots of information that goes around and revolves with that data. Now, once that data is being exposed to the vendor, that vendor has no far committed that whether it would sell it to another platforms or not, or to any other third party or not. So once your data is out, it can go to any of other organizations. It could be used for, you might receive calls asking for credit card, asking for loans, or asking for medical insurance, healthcare services, or any other stuff. And this is where your data becomes very, very open, and therefore is at risk. Again, I can bring in another example. Let's say your mobile is being used by your kids, and the kind of searches they do, the kind of communications they do with other WhatsApp groups reveal that the child has interest in so and so games. Now, probably, since children are so gullible, there could be cases where children could be showed ads about gaming. There could be good ads, there could be ads which could addict them to certain games. And ultimately, it's a kind of business model that runs. So the companies who are there are offering those ads and targeting specifically the young ones whom they can identify can spend and are willing to spend and have an addiction. They can also identify whether a child in usual times should be at this particular moment in the classroom and is not in the classroom. So that means the probability of that child to get addicted to games is further higher. And based on that, further other products could be shown, furthermore games could be shown, more apps could be asked to download. So all these are where your data becomes a very, very important concern. Now, from the WhatsApp white paper documents itself, it has clearly mentioned that communication with a recipient who elects to use a vendor to manage the API endpoints are not considered end-to-end encrypted. That means the vendor has the complete information. So vendor by now knows what kind of interest areas you have, which locality you are, probably your age group, what are the interest areas, what kind of products and services you would be interested in. And the similar service, I repeat again, could be charged separately and differently by different people. And this could make it furthermore worse, because let's say the same product, the same service could be charged at different amount and different rate to different people. Now, this was a very basic understanding of this concept. We would be going into further details of the concept as we move forward, and we have brought about the official privacy policies, the snippets of those, to help understand or help get us a clear picture of what the privacy issues are for each of the platforms. So what major platforms are there? First of all, let's have an eye on that. So we have Signal, Threema, Telegram, and WhatsApp. Those are most popular platforms that you must have heard about. So let's talk about each of those one by one, and then we would understand their individual privacy policies. So let's first talk about Signal. Now, Signal, first of all, is beneficial. Why? Because firstly, it is free. And secondly, it uses an open source code. We have already talked about what is the open source code. That means whatever the source code is can be read and can be modified by the people. So it's open to everyone. And therefore, this is the best advantage. And its license is under general public license. So again, it is very, very clear what kind of information would be transmitted, what kind of information it can collect, and what kind of information it can collect for research purposes. So everything is very, very clear. Again, as we move forward with the privacy policy, we would understand that the messaging service Signal uses is end-to-end encrypted. That means only the user A and the user B gets information and the data. So there is a clear transparency in the system, and as a result, Signal has become one of the popular applications as of now. We would be comparing all the messenger platforms in a while. So this was about Signal. Moving on to Telegram. Telegram is again free. It is a cloud-based instant messaging services, but here you have an option for chat and secret chat. Secret chat is a chat which is end-to-end encrypted, and the voice calls over Telegram are end-to-end encrypted. So let's say even if you are using Telegram, that's fine, but you must know that if you are sharing your certain information which is sensitive, data which is sensitive, it should be shared through secret chats and not through chats. So secret chats is where you have the end-to-end encryption, and again, a very important thing here is the voice calls are end-to-end encrypted. So that is something that we need to know about Telegram. Telegram do provide ads, but it has its own ad platform. And that is again that we need to understand. Signal so far, as the company says, as the privacy policy of the company says, do not use, rent or sell or monetize the data. However, Telegram uses the data for research purpose, but it has not clearly mentioned anything about using it for other purposes, but for it does have its own ad platform, and advertisements appear in the channel which serve non-integrated ads so far. So that is about Telegram. The next is Threema. Threema is again a popular messaging app, but the only thing, it is paid, but it is again an open source code. So it is an open source code, that is a plus point of it, but it is paid, which is, I would say, a negative point in the sense most of the people like to move to a messenger platform where their other friends, other colleagues, other people or other known to people are. And therefore, if you are switching to a platform, let's say Threema, where none of your friend circles is there or none of your colleagues are there, then definitely there is no point switching there. So that makes Threema a little disadvantageous. Another important thing is it has been developed by a Swiss company. However, it was recently in news because it was being used by a lot of terrorist organizations. So that's a totally different story. But yes, we have Threema, which is open source. So definitely it's better. We know what the source code is, what and how the policies are, but it is paid. The next is WhatsApp, that most of us have been using through the years. And recently in 2014, WhatsApp was basically acquired by Facebook. The initial era of WhatsApp was by its own founder. Later on, it was acquired by Facebook. And since it has been acquired by Facebook, there has been lots of controversies, lots of debates, lots of questions around the data and basically the data being shared. Now, we already know with Facebook, we had a very famous case of Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal. Now, what was it? You are very much familiar with this case already. Here, data of millions of users of Facebook without their consent was given to a British consulting firm, and this was collected through an app which was known as This Is Your Digital Life, and the psychological profiles of the users was used, and this was basically used in the political campaigns when Donald Trump was contesting the elections. So there was a political campaigning around the data that was sold of thousands and millions of American voters. So nearly 87 million Facebook profiles. Data was harvested from that, and there was a kind of building up of psychological profile based on the discussions, based on the Facebook Open Graph platform. The information that was collected was public. So that is where we had one of the major issues with Facebook. Now we need to understand that since there has been a history where data has been shared, we need to be very much cautious further before we move ahead with our decisions on what platform to actually use. Now, what we are trying to do is, I have brought about the original snippets of the messenger platforms here, and these are from their original documentation. So whatever presentations are here, whatever privacy policies we have discussed here are from the official sources. And we would be focusing on some of the key aspects. So definitely privacy policies are too large. We would be bringing about some of the most important aspects from those. So the first is that we talk about is signal. Now, when we focus on signal, let's understand the first page of it. Now it says privacy of the users here. Now privacy of the users, when I say is, it clearly mentions Signal does not sell, rent or monetize your personal data or content in any way ever. So it is very, very clearly given in the privacy policy of Signal that your data would not be sold, rented or monetized. So all of your personal information is safe. The next important thing that we need to understand here is Signal cannot decrypt the access for the content as well as calls. Okay, so be it the message, be it the call, it is totally encrypted end to end. So that is where it has its policy very, very clear. And in worst case, if there is temporary offline, the phone battery is not working, in that case the server would have the queues, the signal queues for the data, and the message would be stored in your local devices. So when it's local devices, it's on security, it's not on privacy, as we have discussed before. Also in the user support, it is clearly mentioned that any personal data that you are sharing with Signal would be kept only for the purpose of research or contacting you further. So the policies laid down by Signal are very, very clear and crisp. Moving on to the policies of Telegram. So from the major policies that we have brought about, the first major thing it says is we do not use your data to show ads. So that is the very first thing that it has clearly mentioned. Another important thing that it mentions is that unlike other services, we do not use the data for ad targeting or commercial purpose. So that's again very, very clear. So far, no such policy is there by Telegram. And the next important thing that Telegram says is the reviews and the updates could be made from time to time. However, that's applicable for all the platforms. But here, yes, definitely the policies could change, and whatever policies are changing are available or notified to you. Now, when these policies are notified, most of us, 99% of us, would never read the policy. You would just scroll down and there is an option, I accept, not now, later. So most of us do accept and move forward. They do not read what is there in the privacy policy. So if you even read once, you would have an idea if there is a substantial change that is coming up. However, most of us now rely on social media to look for any substantial change, as has been the case for WhatsApp recently. The next thing is end-to-end encrypted data. So definitely here, the data is encrypted end-to-end for secret chats, as we said. So if you are using Telegram, you should go for secret chats to share the sensitive data. Now, when I say sensitive data, it could be your date of birth, your Aadhaar number, your academic details, your credentials, your bank account details, probably your PIN number. So all of those are sensitive data, your health records, medical records. So all those are sensitive data and are part of the secret chats. So they should be part of the secret chats. And as we said, voice services again is end-to-end encrypted, but a normal Telegram text service is not end-to-end encrypted. So that is something you should be very, very clear about. And Telegram clearly mentions that secret chat uses end-to-end encryption. So any message, photo, video files sent through it would be encrypted and not known to the server. So that is a very important thing that you must keep an eye on. Moving on to WhatsApp policies. So WhatsApp so far, which is a kind of company under Facebook or has a parent company Facebook, has the following guidelines that it says that it does not keep a log of everyone who is messaging or calling. It does provide end-to-end encryption as of now, and that is between the users. But if you are communicating, a user is communicating with a business account, then in that case, as per the policy changes of WhatsApp, the information would not be end-to-end encrypted. The groups remain private and you can disappear your message, but whatsoever the case is, even if you are disappearing your message, it has been onto the servers and therefore it can be retrieved by the vendors that are there. Now, if we look on to what is changing as per the official documentation of WhatsApp policies, it clearly says some businesses need secure host services that Facebook plans to offer, and therefore, when the businesses are using these services, they would mention it that these businesses are using our services, and based on that a person can decide whether to go for these services or not. But yes, in all of these cases there would be a scenario where the information would be shared, and since the information is being shared, as we said, your personalized information could be shared, and it clearly mentions it can be used to show personalized ads. Personalized ad means the same example that we discussed in the starting, where we talked about searching a pen on Amazon and seeing similar ads by Amazon on different websites, where you are being shown the products which you have searched or which you have browsed, and that is through the information Amazon has collected while you were browsing or through your browsing history. So therefore, personalized targeted ads could be brought about, and this could identify your location. It could be it could show you specific products, specific games, specific toys, specifically for children, insurance. It could be medical insurance, car insurance. Information could be leaked to medical agents, and you could receive calls. Your data is no more private, your information is no more private. And again, when your date of birth is shared, age specific products could be shown, and there could be targets that could be based on age specific requirements and commodities that you are interested into. And it clearly says that these businesses would be having a shopping experience which would be directly in the WhatsApp as well. So definitely, as per the new policy changes, if the information is shared, if you are doing a chat with a business account, which in some case you would be able to decipher, in some cases you might not be able to decipher, or in some cases you can simply miss that. In all those cases, you would see that your information goes to the vendor, your business API, the information goes to a vendor, probably Facebook, if not to some other vendor, and Facebook further has the right to sell that information in the market. So definitely it becomes a very serious security concern. So this is where we were in the starting, and I have brought this slide again to help us understand that how information would not be end-to-end encrypted when there would be a vendor and business APIs who would be using a vendor to help them with their businesses could use other vendors, but other vendors could charge them. Facebook would probably provide it for free, and therefore most of the people might switch to Facebook itself, and they would have to choose any of the business APIs in any case. So definitely the data that would be shared would not be end-to-end encrypted. And this is again the same thing that we are trying to bring in. Now, the recent Financial Express study that was from yesterday's paper, 17 January paper, says that only 18% Indian users might continue using WhatsApp, and 36% would reduce the usage of WhatsApp drastically. And this is based on one of the survey researches that have been published in Financial Express. We have quoted the original source. You can go back and refer whole of the article there. The next important thing that we need to bring into light here is about Snapchat. Now, Snapchat is again a messaging platform where pictures and messages could be shared. And the best advantage of a platform like this is the messages are short-lived. So they are there for 24 hours. and after 24 hours the messages are removed. Even the Snapchat servers automatically delete all unopened chats for within 30 days. So that is again a good platform if you just want to share certain moments. Snapchat could be probably a good option where messages are automatically destroyed. They remain there for few hours and few duration, and after that it is automatically destroyed. So that is one of the good options again, where people have a habit of switching and shifting from one platform to another, and rather they are addicted probably to messaging and social media. In that case, this could be also one of the alternatives that could be tried. Now what we need to understand is we need to protect our data by all means. So that is the crux of this lecture today, I believe. So when we are saying we need to protect our data, how do we protect? So as we said, there are security issues and privacy issues. When it comes to security issues, a person might have a locker, a person might go for a lock and key or for a safe rent. So those are some of the options that you try. But when it comes to protecting your data, you must be very sure that this data is not being shared by other people. So let's say you have your checkbook. Now, one of the checks that you have written is incorrect. You want to destroy it. So you don't simply throw that check away. What you do is you first tear it off, you mark it cancelled, or you tear it off and then throw it. And that is where you are protecting your privacy. And the same goes when you are moving online. So when you are moving online, again we recommend that you must be connected to a secured Wi-Fi platform. That is the first important thing. Again, do not provide the sensitive information at a lot of places except where it is required. Nowadays a lot of information is being shared through WhatsApp or any other messaging platforms. Even while with this pandemic, people have shifted digitally, people have shifted virtually, and as a result, even official communications have gone through platforms like WhatsApp and other networking platforms, other messaging platforms. So be very very careful when you are sharing your information, what kind of information and which platforms you are sharing. And then we also need to understand that we need to keep our data private. So we need to regularly assess the privacy policies that are being brought about even by the social media accounts. We should not rely on a news that is coming and finally we get aware that there is a change into a privacy policy, and then we move and go and browse about the privacy policy. We should be very very aware about the privacy policy, specifically with social media platform, before we click I accept or we click remind me later, whatsoever it is. But we should read those privacy guidelines very very carefully. And it's not just the name that is being shared. As we said, you have a lot of information that is associated and tied to it. Now globally, if we look into, there are various countries which have brought about privacy policy and rules. Since 1974 in US, we have the US Privacy Act, which talks about restriction on data being held by government agencies, and a series of acts which we have brought about here explain how data is being protected. The one most commonly heard nowadays is GDPR, which is the General Data Privacy Regulation, which protects the the personal data of European Union citizens. However, in India, we do not have any such act as of now. We do have guidelines under Supreme Court where we say right to privacy is a fundamental right, but it is still not an absolute right. It is subject to reasonable restrictions. We would not go into the constitutional details and the legal details for the same, because that's not exactly what this lecture is about. But our idea was to get a general information about the concept and understanding what actually privacy is, how it is very very different from security, and what we actually need to know. It's actually not a myth. So those are some of the things that we have discussed. I hope this was clear, and if any one of you have any doubts and any questions, please feel free to raise the questions. I'll be happy to address those. Looking for questions, if any.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
Good
please.
evening there. Uh, I would like to ask one thing. Suppose I have shared some document with a colleague, some working document,
Uh-huh.
and after like she or he has gone through it, and say 10 minutes, I have deleted it. It
Yes.
still, has some security problems.
Yes, it does has, because for 10 minutes it was on the server. And if it is end-to-end encrypted, then it's not an issue. But if it is not end-to-end encrypted, then definitely for 10 minutes your data was exposed. So it's the same thing that we talked about initially. Once the wallet is out of pocket, it's out of pocket. So it does not matter whether it is for 5 minutes, someone can take it in 5 minutes, or it can be there on the table for, let's say, 5 years and no one even touches the wallet because of the pandemic fear. So that is a totally different story. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Shalu has a question about open source, right? So open source code is basically when the software is written, the users, all of the users who are using that data, the software have access to the source code. That means they know what is part of the program that has been written. So whether it talks about monetization, whether your data would be leaked or not, everything is open to public. And once everything is open to public, the things are very, very clear. It's not under the shadow of a private company or a particular parent company that is there. And therefore, if any change is there, it would be easily addressed and would be known at the very first go itself. I hope, Shalu, it's clear. Sneha has a question. The link was hidden by the video. I'm sorry about that. If you want, I can share the links through the chat box here. So I would be sharing the links here. So I would be sharing two of the links that I have collected here. So one is the white paper of WhatsApp. So that would be available in the link here, in the chat here. And the other link is about the Financial Express article that I have taken. And that is again shared in the chat box here. I hope that has been addressed. There is another question by Anjali Gaur. What about, I would like to ask that the extensions are available for Snapchats. In that case, our data is insecure. So Anjali, I have expressed that in the same question that has been asked previously. So yes, definitely it is insecure. It's just the story, how much time it has been exposed, but it is exposed. The data is exposed, so it is exposed. If it is for 5 minutes or 1 day or 2 days, that's a different thing. Okay. Any other questions? Any other doubts? Please let me know. Okay, thanks, Anjali. There is another question by Shalu. Which is the best platform for social media? So definitely, it's totally up to you to decide which is the best platform for social media. But we have discussed the pros and cons for each of the platform. What I could recommend here is definitely an open source platform would be good, because all the coding, the software, how it is coded, the information of it is known to each and everyone. So there cannot be any hidden changes that could be brought about in the software and the source code. And therefore, firstly, open source code is code or open source softwares are good. The second important thing is how many users are using that platform. So as I mentioned initially, if there are many users using that platform versus very few, let's say you do not have any of your known to on that platform that you want to communicate, then there is no point. So Threema, I would say, is a paid platform and very less popular in India. So definitely that won't be a good choice for most of you. Again, as we said, there is an option of secret chat in Telegram, but the other chats are exposed. So even if you are using Telegram, secret chat should be something that should be used for sharing your data. So out of these, what I could say as of now, Signal is probably one of the good choices that you can make here. Disha Vadvan has another question. It is absolutely impossible for an encrypted data to be decoded, or it can be decoded. Now, Disha, this is an excellent question, I would say. As I explained in the initial slide, I would like to go back to that slide once more to help have a clear picture of that. When I say data is end-to-end encrypted, what does this mean? This implies that only user A and user B have access to the data. But the rules and the guidelines of the user should be very, very clear while you are talking about end-to-end encryption. So this data, what we have explained here, is end-to-end encrypted and therefore is 100% safe. Even if it is decoded at the server, it would be decoded as signs and symbols or some other characters, which cannot be which cannot be decrypted by the server. So which cannot be decoded by the server. So that information which is end-to-end encrypted can be decoded only to the required recipient or only by the required recipient. So it can be decoded only by a person who actually is requiring it. Okay, so it's very, very important to understand. Therefore, we brought these terms in the beginning, that the data that is being shared by as per the new policy changes of WhatsApp would not be end-to-end encrypted when a user is communicating with a business account in WhatsApp. If two users are communicating together, that data would be end-to-end encrypted, but the other information, the other data that a person A is communicating with a business account would not be end-to-end encrypted. So I hope that is clear. There is another question from Muskan. Everyone is saying if we do not accept the policy given by WhatsApp, our WhatsApp would be uninstalled itself by February 8th. Is it so? So Muskan, there have, first of all, this deadline has been extended. I believe yesterday itself there was a news. It has been moved forward to the month of May. So you do have ample time for clarification. But yes, even in either case, you would have to either accept or reject the policy to continue with the WhatsApp. So if you are continuing with WhatsApp, you would have to either accept it or reject it. In case you are not accepting, you won't be able to further see the messages. But yes, WhatsApp, as we said, do provide the option to download your data, to download your history. And that is something that can be done, because in case you had a prior communication with some other organizations, you require some important contacts that have been shared, some other information that has been shared with you. To remain safe, you can download the data as of now. So that is something that is highly recommended at this point, to download the data and keep it safe. Then there is another question about this. The link is for CyberCell members. I believe Sushma would be, Dr. Sushma would be able to answer this question. I'm not sure about what the policies are for the college and the CyberCell. But yes, we have been broadcasting this on YouTube. The link, I believe, has been shared with the students. Okay, thanks, Muskan. Are there any further questions that need to be addressed here? You can simply unmute and ask the questions as well. It's not required that you simply post the questions in the chat box. Any of the candidates, any of the faculty, if interested, and if is asking, can simply unmute and ask the questions.
So I think again, I think we can use this WhatsApp if it is purely for the academic purpose, and it is also one should not share the personal data in any case on any of these platforms. This is what should be done to safeguard our information which we like to share with us. If it is end-to-end encrypted, then it is safe. If it is not, then it is not safe. This is the crux of the story, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So I think it was a very useful session. Dr. Arora, thank you so much for calling money for this important, results which we already had, and we can take necessary steps and be more informed before we share any of our information.
Yes, true.
I think conclude, Sushma.
Yes, ma'am, we are thankful to you for your words of wisdom. Dr. Jan, my heartfelt congratulations to you for this wonderful presentation. You have very well explained in your presentation various concepts like privacy and security, third party data, open source code, end to end encryption, etc. You have also beautifully covered various alternative apps like Signal, Telegram, and Threema. Once again, thanks to you for an enlightening presentation and addressing the queries of the members. Now over to Dr. Santosh San.
जी सभी को सादर नमस्कार। आज के इस तकनीकी युग में हम सभी सोशल मीडिया के विभिन्न माध्यमों का प्रयोग कर रहे हैं। सोशल मीडिया के विभिन्न माध्यमों में से व्हाट्सएप एक ऐसा माध्यम है जिसका प्रयोग शिक्षित, अशिक्षित सभी वर्गों में किया जा रहा है, जिसका प्रमुख कारण है कि व्हाट्सएप का प्रयोग अत्यंत ही सरल है, जिसे कोई भी आसानी से समझकर इसका प्रयोग कर सकता है। व्हाट्सएप ने हमें अनेकों सुविधाएं प्रदान की हैं, जिसकी वजह से यह हमारे दिन प्रतिदिन के कार्यकलापों से इस कदर जुड़ा कि हमें ये पता ही नहीं चला कि कब ये हमारे जीवन और हमारी जीवन शैली का अंग बन गया। भारतीय समाज का लगभग हर व्यक्ति सोते जागते इसका आदी हो चुका है और ऐसी स्थिति में अचानक न्यू प्राइवेसी पॉलिसी के तहत व्हाट्सएप ने अपनी नीतियों में जल्द ही बदलाव करने की घोषणा कर दी। ये नीतियां व्हाट्सएप यूजर्स के हित में है या नहीं है, इसे जानना बहुत ही जरूरी है। व्हाट्सएप की नई नीतियों को समझने और समझाने के लिए ही आज इस वेबिनार का आयोजन किया गया, जिसके लिए सबसे पहले तो मैं आदरणीय प्रिंसिपल मैम का तहे दिल से धन्यवाद करती हूँ, क्योंकि व्हाट्सएप की नई नीतियों को वेबिनार के माध्यम से समझने और समझाने का जो विचार सबसे पहला था वो मैडम प्रिंसिपल मैम का ही था। और साइबर सेल की ओर से मैं आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद करती हूँ कि आपके सहयोग और प्रोत्साहन से ही आज का ये कार्यक्रम सुचारू रूप से संपन्न हो पाया। साइबर सेल की कन्वीनर डॉक्टर सुषमा अरोड़ा मैम के हम बहुत ही आभारी हैं, क्योंकि आपके मार्गदर्शन में सोशल मीडिया से जुड़ी अनेकों समस्याओं से संबंधित कार्यक्रम समय समय पर कॉलेज की छात्राओं के लिए आयोजित किए जाते रहते हैं। लेकिन आज व्हाट्सएप की नीतियों में होने वाले बदलाव की गंभीरता को समझते हुए कॉलेज के टीचर्स, नॉन टीचिंग स्टाफ और छात्राओं के लिए इस वेबिनार का आयोजन करना आपकी तरफ से एक बहुत बड़ा कदम है। आपके निर्देशन में आयोजित यह वेबिनार हम सभी के लिए अवश्य ही दिशा निर्देश देने वाला साबित होगा, ऐसी मेरी कामना है। और आपका विशेष धन्यवाद मैम। वेबिनार की विशिष्ट वक्ता डॉक्टर मनीषिका जैन मैम, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने इतनी बारीकी से व्हाट्सएप की नई नीतियों के बारे में हमें बताया। साथ ही आपने सिग्नल, टेलीग्राम, थ्रीमा जैसी आपने ऐप्स के बारे में भी हमें बहुत ही विस्तार से बताया और हमारे सामने एक विकल्प भी हमारे सामने रख दिया कि हम अगर हम इस्तेमाल नहीं कर पा रहे हैं तो उस वैकल्पिक तौर पर हमारे सामने बहुत सारे साधन हैं जिससे कि हम सोशल मीडिया से जुड़े रह सकते हैं। और आशा करती हूँ कि गूगल मीट और यूट्यूब पर उपस्थित सभी प्रतिभागी आपके इस वक्तव्य से बहुत ही लाभान्वित हुए होंगे। आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद। साइबर सेल की को कन्वीनर डॉक्टर सान्या, साइबर सेल की कार्यकारिणी सदस्य, छात्रों का जो सदस्य हैं वो और टीचर्स और सभी टीचर्स का धन्यवाद कि आप सभी के भरपूर सहयोग और प्रयासों से ये कार्यक्रम संपन्न हो पाया। साथ ही आज के इस कार्यक्रम में प्रतिभागी के रूप में उपस्थित कॉलेज के सभी टीचर्स, नॉन टीचिंग स्टाफ और छात्राओं का भी मैं धन्यवाद करती हूँ कि आप सभी की गरिमामयी उपस्थिति से यह कार्यक्रम सुचारू रूप से संपन्न हो सका। धन्यवाद।
Yes, friends. Thanks everyone for joining us and making this event very, very successful. And now, friends, I'm going to conclude this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.